is it a deal breaker for your spouse to be in financial debt? Is that a deal breaker? And when I mean debt, I'm not talking about 5,000 rand, 10,000 rand. I'm talking about a serious amount of money. Is that a deal breaker for you, or do you look at that individual a lot different? How do you feel about that? I know we're not supposed to judge, but I just feel like to a certain degree, judging is human nature. And how do you feel about that? And
So
have you experienced it?
no, go ahead.
Basically, have you experienced it? Have you been there?
When you say spouse, are you saying you're already married
You
to
good,
this
Rain? Go ahead.
person? Are you speaking of someone you're married to already and you discover that they have financial debt, or this is someone that you're entering a relationship with? Okay. So Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. My question was, are you speaking of someone you're married to now? And you discover that they have debt, or you're saying this is someone that you're entering a relationship with, and then of course they disclose this to you.
So, someone you're entering a relationship with,
Okay. All right.
or let's say you've been in a relationship for say 6 months, because
Okay.
most people who are in debt, they will not let you know that from day one. The
Right.
first 2 dates, the first 3 dates, you will not know anything. Even when once you become intimate, you will not know it until they feel comfortable.
Okay. I think it's very important. For me, one of the questions that I asked in the beginning is how are you with your finances? Um, so let's just say someone is um, in debt $10,000, $20,000. I would want to know why. Is it due to financial? Student loans? Is it due to you trying to maintain a certain lifestyle? So that would play a big role uh, in why they're in debt. If I'm dating a woman with children and she's holding the fort on her own, then that could be a reason. And so my question would be, how are you managing that debt? What are you doing to get yourself out of that financial bond? If you're taking steps towards clearing that up, then good. I would have no worries. If there's some women who are in debt and they have no idea how to get out of it and they continue to add to that, then I feel like for me as a man who has a strong financial sense, I can step in and help her out. Now the question is she willing to hear what I have to say, or is she open to suggestions? And if she's not, then more than likely that's not the woman for me, because I feel like the way you conduct yourself now with us being boyfriend and girlfriend would be the same way you would conduct yourself in a marriage. So more than likely, I would probably step away from that relationship.
I will say this, and this is not speaking on my marriage today, but I was in a relationship years ago where that was an issue. And once I found out about it, and I saw that to where that individual, it wasn't even a big deal. It wasn't even something that she really even worried about. And what I noticed is that it didn't even matter. This individual would be traveling to foreign places, doing this, doing that, and have just a super large amount of debt. And to me, that bothered me. That in my eyes, that was a deal breaker, because at the end of the day, when I do travel, I want to be clear mind, open heart, to where I'm not worried about bills. I'm not worried about any debt or anything of that nature, to where we're able to have a good time, focus, and just enjoy our time and make great memories. You know, I'm speaking knowing that at one point in my life I was in a large amount of debt. And when I became debt free, I was my thing. I'm never going back. I'm never going back. So some people take it lightly, some people don't. And it's crazy. As men, I've talked to a lot of men in the military about that. That's something I push towards my unit and everything, and being financially free. And a man will tell you intimate details about what he did with whoever he's with, and intimate details about this and that before they would ask for help with debt or tell you that they're in debt. And I just think that's just a huge problem, because that's definitely finance is definitely in the top three reasons why divorce happens. So if you do go further as far as with that individual, man, like, it's a red flag that you, especially when you see it early, it's kind of one of those things where you're just like, wow, I seen this, but I didn't think it was going to get out of control like that. But it happens. So
So, from my perspective, I would have to say this was a challenge for me. And it wasn't that I was so much in debt, it's just that I had zero money management skills. And also because I've been in my relationship since my teens. Um, my husband and I grew up together. So we formed our financial literacy, basically all of our, we formed this together. Individually, we have strengths. Finances is his strength. And I pushed back for a long time. I was like, I know what I'm doing. And I'm very glad he stuck it out with me, because at one point, I think that I was perhaps a bear to live with, because it's that situation where I felt like I know best, but he had the skill and I was not acknowledging his skill in any way. And then on this one day, I don't know what happened. I think a moment of surrender and submission happened. That's actually what happened. And I was like, okay, we're gonna do it your way. We're gonna try. And I got out of my own way, and we succeeded. And it was at that moment that I understood my flaw. I understood my mistake. That had I listened sooner, we would have been so much further along. And that's why I can speak on the perspective as someone who doesn't necessarily have tons of debt, but doesn't understand how to use money. In that time, I have learned so much that I can now contribute to financial literacy. But I made myself teachable, whereas for many years I was not. And I think had I not been teachable, I don't know that we would still be a couple today. So that's definitely something I can say. And I also worked in home finance for a very long time, and this formed my perspective on how you contract about money when you get married. I just didn't know it, and I'm glad that at some point I got to exercise it, because a lot of the time when people are getting married, we've got I think you guys call it a prenup. We call it an anti-nuptial agreement, and then there's where you get married 50-50, which is called community of property. I don't know if it's the same in the States. So, where you get married in community of property, basically all your assets are just chucked together. And if you divorce, you split it down the middle, and that's what happens. Whereas with an anti-nuptial contract, it's like a prenup where you specify what you're bringing in, what you're sharing, and you list your assets. And I would say to people for years, like, I know you love each other. It has nothing to do with money. When you're getting married, like, sit and look at your marriage contract, because your marriage contract can actually protect your spouse. But a lot of people link it to, oh, do I love you if I'm not getting married 50-50? And I was like, well, that's dumb. Okay, I was doing dumb things too. But anyway, so then, when it came time for us then to sit down with our marriage contract, I was actually surprised that not only the financial literacy that he had taught me, but that I had learned, because I saw people's houses being repossessed and taken away because of how they chose to get married, because I think that's when both partners are financially illiterate and they're linking their wealth and their finance to their emotions, where sometimes in your marriage, you have to take that out to actually look at the money, to see the sums and to make it make sense. We were then able to look at that and go, okay, we need to look at assets. We need to look at what's happening in our life. And the decision was made to do an antenuptial contract and split our assets in a particular way simply for the protection of the other. It had nothing to do with how much I love you. It had everything to do with if something happens, if any one of these things happen, you're protected or you're protected. And that's what you're having to look at. So for me, I would say my perspective really comes from being willing to be teachable and then changing my habits.
So I obviously was kicked out for a little bit. What was the initial question on finances?
The question was basically, is if you're dating someone, you just started dating them, is them being in debt, is it a deal breaker as far as a large amount of debt? Is it a deal breaker?
So I don't know if I can answer that question directly, but I will. I know the part of the conversation that I came in on was Janelle talking about not having education on financial management or how to manage money and that kind of thing. And what I've seen growing up in my dad's relationship. So my father was really good with money in terms of budgeting, money management, and just self-control. And then my stepmother was not. So she is an impulsive spender. And I saw the disconnect. I saw what ended up happening was like she would buy things and then hide the things. So there was like an element of dishonesty that came in. And I knew watching that kind of thing that I did not want to be that person if ever I did get into a relationship, if ever I did get into a marriage. And so I think that that kind of shaped my outlook towards money, where I was like, I need to be more like my father. I can't be just spending anyway. I mean, she would buy stuff and then hide the stuff in my closet in the bedroom. And then when he wasn't there, I was given the task of discarding said evidence so that so I was involved in this line. I really didn't like how that whole dishonesty thing felt. And I didn't like how she could not handle money. And I realized that the decisions that she was making was impacting the family unit. So I knew that's not something that I wanted to get into. So I can't say that I wouldn't date somebody that's in debt or wouldn't have dated somebody that's in debt, but I can say that if there wasn't an agreement on money management and an honesty there, then I couldn't be in that relationship.
I can say this, as far as being here in America, due to social media and it's so many different platforms, so much designer wear. Like you got people in America who are making $50,000 a year, but they have to have and they could be in debt. They have to have the Gucci, the Prada, the Fendi. Just almost kind of want to be just doing everything everybody else is doing and knowing that they're in debt. And it's crazy. You see this all the time, as well as you see a lot of married couples who financial literacy is just not there. And it's crazy because when you try to talk about it, a lot of people don't want to hear you. I constantly try to preach that in my unit as far as financial literacy. And I pray and hope a lot of these guys start to listen, which I'm seeing a difference. A lot of people coming to me with their issues and everything. I have a soldier right now who's getting ready to get married. And he literally called off the wedding because of his financial, like he was illiterate. He did not understand, and he knew he was in debt, but he didn't know how much. And when I had to show him, and when we went through all the paperwork and everything, he was like, yeah, I don't think I'm ready. And that made me feel good, knowing that he was able to wait, knowing that I'm not sure how things are in South Africa, but in the States, financial finances is number 2 on the list as far as divorce. Usually when people get divorced, number 1 is communication. It's lack of communication. Number 2 is finance. And it's crazy because one of the individuals who are not financially um, knowledgeable in everything, it's like one could be a saver, the other one is a spender, and they don't want to change who they are. And that turns into a lack of respect for each other. And that'll go from the situation being from finance to infidelity. Um, it's definitely a big topic that a lot of people don't want to talk about. It's super super duper personal, especially when you don't know anything about financial literacy. And I even try to tell people, teach your kids at a young age. You know, teach them about debt at a super young age, and really go from there. So
Yeah, I think that's something that both parties should be on the same page about, especially when entering a relationship and talking about marriage. I do believe that premarital counseling should be had. And I think in that session, finances should be a topic of discussion. Um, that is like you said, it can make or break a marriage. You have some people that are willing to, they want to keep up with the Joneses because they've been used to living a certain lifestyle. Maybe in their childhood, their parents have provided a lifestyle for them where they were able to wear the Prada, the Gucci, the Fendi, and things of that such. But now that they're on their own, they want to continue living that lifestyle, but don't have the means to. It's like someone said before, you have enough money. You make enough money to afford a Honda Accord, but you want to live a BMW lifestyle. And you have a
mhm.
lot of people that are out there like that. Um, so yeah, I do believe that it's important to be on the same page because otherwise it will create an issue in that relationship.
Yeah, I've seen even in my family that issue was huge. I've seen a lot of marriages where fights would happen just due to finance and communication, because the wife spent too much money, or the husband decided to buy a vehicle or a truck that he cannot afford. Stuff like that happens, and hopefully, man, people just be able to open up and speak on it. If they don't know, at least try to get the help to definitely take their knowledge to another level as far as financial literacy and everything. And it's super important in a marriage. I don't care what anybody said. That's like, for me, it's up here. Like, you gotta, like, if you're not educated on it, but your wife is or your husband is, like, I strongly suggest get educated on it. Like, even with me in my marriage, I take care of the finances, but I also let my wife know, hey, this amount of money is here. This is how you get to here. This is what we have, and go from there. And I never bite off more than I can chew. So,
Mike,
uh,
I have a question for you, and it's actually
okay.
for both you and Taryn. Prior to entering your marriage, how did you guys determine who gets to take the leading role in managing your finances?
I don't think that there was a decision taken. I think it was just a natural progression. And it's not like, I mean, I follow a couple of females who are, their niche is female financial empowerment. And so many of them are like, oh, you can't let the husband take care of all the things and you don't have like a nest egg in case something goes wrong, or that type of thing. So I'm not ignorant, but it was a natural progression that he is in charge of the finances. However, it is open. If I need to know anything, if I need to know where any of the money's gone, if I need to know what our investments are like, he's open about it. There's nothing hidden.
Okay. So you said it was easy to fall
Yeah.
into I guess, into a position where Mike was able to lead. Was that something you saw in your childhood where your father managed the finances and your mother was able to? Okay. So it was.
So, but like I said, so I grew up I grew up with my dad and my stepmom, not my mom. And he was technically in charge of the finances, but she was not submissive to it, if that's the nicest way I can put it. Yeah.
Yeah, I got you.
Chanel, how did you and Keenan decide how finances would be managed in your marriage?
Natural progression. I
Okay.
mean, also because he had the stronger skill set. One of the things we do now, I don't know if I'm allowed to plug other shows here, but if I am allowed, we watched a really good show on Netflix called what is it called? It's How to Get Rich
Yeah.
on Netflix. And I found that to be like one of those continuous improvements because like we now read a lot. Like if he reads something, he gives it to me to read. If he's watching something like this, we watch together, and so on. So I think once as a couple, even if someone is leading, but once you decide to manage your wealth together, and it's not just finance, because in a marriage now you're building a legacy, so you're managing your wealth, and that's what happens when you choose. Like if someone's just naturally better at it, and you're like, okay, but it's open. I know what's going on, and I think that's the difference. Before, where I got out of my own way, I actually then started to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so we have like an annual sort of like financial sit down like you would have with your accountant. We do the accountant thing, but we do it together. So by the time we get there, nothing shocking. And everything is accessible, as Darren said. And I think that's the hallmark of what happens when you realize like who's got what strengths. Because I will say I'm the person, I'm not necessarily technically as good as managing money as he is, but I will manage every rand when I'm spending. I will not hide it. I will stretch it if it needs to be stretched. I will, those are the things, because that's where it becomes complementary. So it becomes complementary when the house needs something and that I'm in charge of. And like my child already knows, shame, from a very young age. She was like, Mommy, here's the specials. That's what we call when things are on promotion. And she's like, here's the promotions. And it's because she knows that I'm going to go and I'm going to do that, because it's like I want to stretch a rand as far as I possibly can, because he's done the work to make it available. Now I'm doing the work to make sure that it's a resource. And I think, that as couples, when we can work together in that way, then we're building wealth, then we're building legacies, then we're building strong homes. But I had to learn that. This wasn't something I came by naturally. And I think that if you are in a marriage where one person is being obstinate about learning to be financially savvy, they have a choice. It's on that person, because that was a choice I made. But if they are willing to learn, be somebody that teaches them and that helps them, and then together as a couple grow from that place. Like never stagnate, never think that you know everything there is to learn about money, because money is one of those things that there's always a next step and a next level, to achieve and to find out like, oh, I didn't know that. And I think that's part of the fun now.
I would have to say this. As far as me and my wife, like she said, it was a natural progression. Like, how would I say it? So even with me, knowing that she's where she's at and I'm here, if I spend, let's say, over $75 to $100, I don't need her to check the account. I will let her know, hey, this is what I need to get. This is what's what. Like, the communication is always there. Like if she has to get something, hey, babe, I'm trying to get this. the communication is there. And I feel like with her, it's not I rule this and I'm the ruler because I'm the man, because I'm the head, and it says this in the Bible. No, it's we're a team. And being a team, we're going to communicate and we're going to take it from there. She has financial goals just like I do. And I will never always put myself before her and do all my goals first and wait, and then she do her goals. It's we're a team. We're going to do everything together. And that's one of the things I love and respect about my wife. We both have our roles, and you go from there. Like, I feel like I'm very financial savvy. Am I like the financial guru? No. Do I like reading and learning about finance, as well as, like Janelle said, watching the Netflix series that'll educate you more about finance, and to where you see how other families are doing things, and the ones who are doing things positively as well as the ones who are doing things negatively. Like, I enjoy that. And finance is just my thing. And I will always put my family in a position to win. And with her knowing that, like I said, we don't hide anything from each other. I see a lot of families that do that, you know, and that's just not how we roll. You know, it's that communication is key. Communication as well as trust, and it's both there with us. So, yeah.
And I think that even though Taryn and I in this situation say that like both of us, our husbands technically manage things and things are open. I have a very good friend where both she and her husband are like very, very technically financially savvy, but she manages the finances. And like her spreadsheet is the most epic thing I have ever seen. Like I've told her to monetize that thing so many times but she's an accountant. And so her husband has said to her, like, I feel like you're the best person to manage this, even though he's fully financially savvy. But that's what happens in that home, and many times she's my friend, but she's also Keenan's friend. And so the two of them will have conversations about like strategies and that kind of thing. And it'll start out with the two of us had a conversation because I'm checking in with my friend. Then he goes, hello. Then she's like, hey, I found out this thing. I want to share it with you. Then the phone goes over and then the two of them are talking like financial strategies and like I'm listening and that kind of thing. And then you'll see him implement it. So I think it comes down to whoever's the most competent at the thing, like now, like let's just like if it's your wife, let her be the most competent at that. But there is a complementary side to that. And it's like the complementary side to that is how it gets used, how it gets spent, as you said, Michael, the communication, saying to each other when you need something, how much is going to be spent. And like Darren said, not hiding it, because that behavior was a very common behavior amongst our mothers. My mother did that all the time. And, and it was also one of those things where I thought to myself, like, but I actually had a friend say to me the other day, she said to me, things in her relationship had gotten so bad that she actually would have to hide what she bought. So in her relationship where her husband was managing things, she didn't actually feel that she could trust him enough to say, I need something in the first place. So she would go then and buy the thing, but then hide the thing because she couldn't trust him. So in some dynamics, it is this like scheming situation where you're hiding it intentionally. And then in other situations, it's where the person that manages it is like unapproachable. And then you're kind of having to like manage something for yourself because you need something basic. And then you can't let that person know about it. So I think, the more we communicate and the more we just learn, constantly just learn, I think in that way, we can definitely like help each other, like in our relationships. And then as couples, because it's almost a stigma to talk about your finances. But I know whenever Michael and Keenan get together, like you guys are forever talking about finances. And I appreciate that because I feel like you need to as couples you don't have to lay out your budget. Right. But I think, sometimes you are the sum of your circle. And like when you can see like, oh, they're doing something better than I'm doing. Like, what are the strategies? What are the techniques that you're using? You can only grow from that.
So it's funny you say that because I was thinking about that. So Taryn as well as Janelle is tracking, but Randy, so you're tracking. So when I went to South Africa in May, Janelle was there the day I got there. Her Gabby, which is her daughter, and her husband. So me and Keenan, every time we link up, it's always we're talking about finances, and we will sit there for hours and just really, like, if I didn't know something, he'll inform me. If he didn't know something, he'll inform, we'll inform each other, whatever. So so yeah, but like even with my wife, when she moved here, I had a strategy as far as how to make our money work for us. And when she saw what I was doing, and I sat down and explained to her, it was like the level of respect for me doing the finances went from here to here, because we were literally taking trips without paying for them. And it was all legal. It was just a matter of the credit card that I had, the points. And it was just basically, buying something and paying it off, and you collect points. So once you have a certain amount of points, you were able to travel. We've taken multiple vacations this year just off points alone. And it's just I feel like when you have someone, when you can make moves like that, the level of respect it just rises. Like, okay, you got this. I see you. I respect you. So this is your deal. This is what you're going to do. And I even brought that up to your husband, Keenan, and he was like, "Wow, y'all can do that." And I broke it down to him, and he was like, "Man, if we had something like that, I would definitely be on it." So yeah, but yeah, man, finances is definitely a big thing. So I guess we'll go ahead and close it out for today. And everything. So I want to thank everybody on the panel for being here, for making the time. We had a little technical difficulty, but we got past that. So I do appreciate Janelle as well as Taryn and Randy for being on. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank
It's
you.
good linking up with you guys again. Until next time.
All right.
Bye.
Next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, okay. Leaving studio.